And the beautiful thing about this is that once you set it up, every time you want to scale to a new level of growth, you can just rinse and repeat the same strategy. Hey, it's Wei, and you're listening to the Limitless Leader Podcast, the podcast for powerfully ambitious entrepreneurs and leaders wanting to have limitless freedom to vision and focus on purposeful impact and growth. And in this episode, we're going to talk about how to create a bulletproof scaling foundation and system in your business that you can simply rinse and repeat every time you want to scale your business or launch a scaling campaign. And it really doesn't matter whatever your reasons are to scale. Just to share with you a few of the reasons that our clients have had in the past. And, you can listen to this and see if any of this resonates with you. We've had clients that wanted to scale and grow their business because they wanted more time in their life or more time in their business to work on the business versus in the business. There's the obvious one. People want to scale their business for revenue. And I think that's one of the most common and popular reasons to scale. A little caveat on that one. If revenue is the only reason why you want to scale, then that we found historically has been one of the biggest bottlenecks as to why people don't successfully scale, because revenue is the only reason. Most entrepreneurs, if you go deep enough, if you dig deep enough, want to scale for more than just money, right? Another one is more freedom, right? They want more freedom in their life, more freedom in their business, more freedom to, as leaders, focus on their critical leadership activities that nobody else in the business is designed to do effectively. There are others who are more about impact. The bigger their business is, the greater impact they can make to their audience, to the world. And for whatever reason it is, this strategy that I'm going to share with you in this episode, it works for any type of scaling goal. So with that in mind, let's talk about the whole concept being bulletproof. And the reason why, we didn't choose that word actually. One of our clients said, hey, this makes the foundation of my business bulletproof to any type of growth that I want to do. And that's the level of confidence that I want to impart to you with what I'm going to share with you today. So we call it bulletproof because let's talk about what makes scaling not bulletproof to your business is when any scaling campaign that you do, any push or revenue push or growth push that you do ends up breaking something in the organization, which then creates this take one step forward, one step back dynamic, or worse yet, every step forward in growth takes two steps back, right? Yeah, I know. Some people get to a point where they take two steps forward, take one step back. But it still kind of gets exhausting after a while. We had a client that was really good and they justified it. It's almost like a linear growth pattern. You take two steps forward, you're going to have to take one step back to fix something that broke. And it became part of his mantra. It's like, well, I know I'm going to have to go back and fix something, but at least we're making one step progression. To which I responded with, well, what if you could take two steps forward and not have to take a step back? Because doesn't that get old after a while? And he sat there and he listened to me for a little bit and thought about it and said, this is probably why I'm here. I'm a little burnt out from doing that. It's a little frustrating why I can't break this pattern of two steps forward, one step back. And that's when we shared this bulletproof scaling blueprint that we're going to talk about. So let's go a little bit deeper and talk about what most entrepreneurs and leaders experience when scaling, especially if you are a leader that has a team of, say 10 people, and you painstakingly, or maybe not, happily built this team to run the business as much as possible, right? And this is typically what's shared with us. They have already run multiple over the years, the course of their business over the years, have tried to scale many times, sometimes successfully, sometimes not so much, right? And, whatever the reason is, sometimes we blame the economy, sometimes we blame the cyclical nature of our industry, or sometimes we blame the people, whatever it is. what it ultimately leads to is, leadership burnout, which is a big deal because if the leader burns out, it's different from an employee burning out. When a leader burns out, it affects the whole entire organization. Not to say that the employee burning out doesn't affect the organization, but you get what I mean. Leaders are responsible for making sure the ship of the business keeps going, right? Team burnout is a big deal. Disenchantment. Think about what happens, especially if you're very closely connected with your teams in your business. Every time you scale, every time you guys get excited about growing the business, and then something happens, and then you have to reel it back or scale it back just to make sure the whole organization doesn't completely break and implode on itself, right? So after a while, morale gets impacted. Right? Disenchantment, the ability, which then impacts your ability to retain people or keep people happy working, doing their work. There's also this propensity then to say, well, if that doesn't work, let's try a different strategy. Entrepreneurs are very agile, right? They're not willing to just sit down and say, okay, let me just beat my head against the door for this one. Let's try this one. Let's try this one. There's a high level of resilience and agility because it's ambition, right? So it becomes this revolving door of scaling strategies. And what that does is just create some more yo-yo scaling dynamics because it's not, what we found over the years, it's not the tactic, it's not the strategies of scaling in and of itself. Sometimes it is, but most of the time it's not, because people who have been in business for a while, they surround themselves with people who have successfully executed some of the strategies they have adopted, but for some reason doesn't work for their organization. And it's not the strategy itself, it's the foundation that the strategy is being applied on. And what we want to do in this episode is help kind of like lay out the framework that you can take away to start making sure that the foundation of your business, because every business wants to scale. Any business that I meet or business owner or entrepreneur or leader that I meet that says, no, I don't want to scale. I would say 98, 99% of the time, it's because they're burnt out. They've tried so many times and they just failed so many times. They just, psychology calls it learned helplessness. They just kind of like give up on it and they've learned to be complacent and just settle for whatever is going on. You don't want to get there. You don't want to be there. So for the most part, most businesses, at least the ones that come to us, they do want to scale, right? And that list of all the things that happen, I mean, you could probably pick one of the things I talked about, but it ultimately results in a loss of faith and vision and possibilities and leads to that, no, I don't want to scale. And then don't be an entrepreneur, go work for somebody, right? So what I want to do is then jump right into what we've done. And it's very simple. I don't know why more people who consult and help other businesses scale don't incorporate more of what we've done. And maybe it's just because of the patented technology we have behind our system that has helped us reveal some really refined processes and approaches that just simply work, right? And so let's talk about how to create that. Now, if you've listened to any of our previous episode, the part of the framework of our scaling framework, our scale up and out framework that this bulletproofing comes from is in phase 1, because why not? I mean, that's where it should be. And I've said this before, most organization will will try to bulletproof. It's kind of like go buy a bulletproof vest after you're being shot at. That's usually how most entrepreneurs approach bulletproofing their foundation. Whereas the best way to do it is to get the bulletproof vest before you get shot at. So that way you already come prepared. And this is what we will be talking about here. So in Foundation 1, I'm going to break down the specific components that contributes to, and the more you do it, and the more you invest into building this out, the more bulletproof that foundation will be for limitless scaling. And I'm serious. When we're talking about scale, you can scale to whatever level that you want if you run this strategy. And what it's going to do is going to eliminate all the scaling anxiety. And that's a thing. I recently discovered that talking to a few of my clients, and I said, what keeps you from scaling? It's like the fear of everything breaking. I said, is that like just fear, or you're just a little bit scared, or is it anxiety? Does it sometimes keep you up? I was like, yeah, there's this like torn state of I really want to grow, but now I have people that I'm responsible for, and I don't want to jeopardize their jobs if something doesn't work out the way I wanted to when I scale, right? So scaling anxiety is a real thing, which is why we developed this process, so you can stall it in your ecosystem of your business to run every single time you want to scale, to give you that 100% confidence that when you scale, you will succeed and sustainably scale. Okay, so it takes a little effort in the beginning, but once you have it set up, just like I said, every time you scale, just run it. Just make a few tweaks, because every time you scale, there's a different level, different metrics, different KPIs, key performance indicators. And then once you kind of make those tweaks, just run the system again. And like I said, you could virtually guarantee the success of any scaling efforts that you do by simply following the parameters that I'm about to outline for you. Okay. Now, in phase 1, we talk about creating customized scaling metrics, KPIs, key performance indicators, milestones, goals, whatever you want to call it. Okay. It's critically important. And you'd be surprised how many people we've come across that don't set any metrics or goals or milestones when they are scaling. And not everybody does this. I'm just saying some people do because they're ambitious. They're so used to shooting from the hip, and they're very, very smart, intelligent, and very quick to pivot and adapt very quickly, to things. However, the rest of the organization doesn't, and then they end up losing their teams along the way. And then, of course, the scaling doesn't sustainably succeed. And I use the word sustainably because most entrepreneurs are able to hustle and grind themselves to hit a specific goal, right? The key for longevity is, well, once you hit it, can that be the new bar? Can that be the new level of performance? Oftentimes, and if you're listening to this, you might resonate with it. I think every entrepreneur at some point resonates with this, is that you hit it and then you can't sustain it because it's too much work, right? I've done this so many times in my businesses in the past that I'm just like, oh my gosh, I'm so burnt out from hitting the goal. And it's like, I got there, but to maintain it, it's like, oh my God, this grind has to keep going. And so some of this strategy was born from my own experiences as well. So what it comes down to is the first step is building out customized metrics of scale. Like I said, every business scales for different reasons. The problem is some of the reasons are very soft, right? What I mean by soft, there's no quantifiable metric that you can associate with it, right? I mean, how do you quantify quality time with, your significant other, quality time with your kids, or just achieving certain personal goals in life that there is no metric attached to it? The challenge is when you don't quantify that and that becomes your deeper reason for scaling, nobody else in the organization knows but you. And so the frustration will come when they try to scale thinking that they're scaling a direction that works for you, but you don't achieve your real, true bottom line reason. And so the first step is not just doing your traditional scaling metrics for all parts of your company of fulfillment and acquisitions and operations, but also making it apparent organization-wide that your why, your reason, personal and business, is incorporated into the metric. And this is important because it shares your value system to make sure everybody in an organization is on board with that as well. Because what's behind your why, what's behind the time that you want, the time freedom that you want as a result of your scaling efforts or your scaling campaign, you'd be surprised how much in alignment it is with your team. If you love your team and they love you, chances are your reasons for scaling is going to inspire them as well, because that's probably why they want to scale or be part of this growth in your business too. So we have a systematic approach of, and I don't know anybody else who does this, but we have a systematic approach of being able to very efficiently and very quickly quantify any of your why metrics. We call this the why stack if you listen to any of the previous episodes. So the why stack, which is all the negative reasons why you want to scale, all the positive reasons. And we also want to quantify your time freedom, okay? You want to be able to convert all of that to a metric. And, for the sake of time, I'm not going to go into the specific strategy. If you do want access to that, look in the description for this episode below. And you'll figure out how to kind of reach out and get free access to the training, so that way you can take some time to go deeper on this. But for the sake of this episode, you want to create a customized set of scaling metrics first and foremost. The next piece is making sure that all activities in your organization and the KPIs are organized into what we call the easy three. You have your acquisitions pillar of the organizations. You have your fulfillment pillar. What happens after you get a customer or client? How are they fulfilled? And then you got operations, right? Now, within those pillars, there are metrics that contribute to acquisitions. Primarily contributes to the metrics of revenue growth and income, right? In fulfillment, it's kind of double. It's like both income, because there's upsell opportunities in fulfillment and doing the process, and obviously the referral mechanism that comes from creating raving fans or customers in your ecosystem. But also in fulfillment, there's areas that impacts the bottom line too, cost savings and whatnot during the fulfillment process. And operations, of course, is really much about impacting the bottom line in terms of efficiency and everything like that, and also retention of funds, right, of income, because we always need a war chest in our organization to help facilitate growth and expansion, right? So once you organize the easy three, your organization, into simplifying it down to the three pillars of the easy three, then this is the cool piece right here. This is the part that helps make sure that you're bulletproof before you execute any tactic for scaling. There's two simulation models. We call it the scaling stress test models. Okay, the first one is called the 100K per month stress test, scaling stress test. Now, when I say 100K a month, even if you are not looking to scale to 100K a month right now, right? Run it 100K a month anyway. It is one of the easiest ways to kind of really test your ecosystem to see if any of the easy three will break under the pressure of $100,000 a month in revenue. Now, if you're already doing that, then just 10x it. Okay, 10x whatever your revenues are, and just run that through the ecosystem. What'll happen is when you run this test, this 100K, a month stress test, you will immediately reveal, and there's a lot of tools out there to help you run simulation models and everything, but just know that this is what you do. You're going to reveal gaps. Okay, what will happen to your acquisitions pillar, to your fulfillment pillar, operations pillar? Okay, you should already know your business well enough that if you just crank up the numbers from the beginning from a cold market all the way through to fulfillment, to operations and everything like that, it will reveal gaps. And what then you do is you do what we call scaling gap spackle in the form of a tech stack, okay, using technology, which by the way is cheaper, and then a human stack, okay? Depending on the resources you have in your business, then you choose one of those stacks to spackle the gap, and then you run it again. And every time you create a solution for a gap, you run it again until all the anxiety around running 100K a month through your entire ecosystem of your business goes away. That's what gives you that confidence, okay? Now, the next stress test is not just that. So it's not just revenue. We call it the time freedom, okay, scaling stress test. And this is important because ultimately you want the business to run without you having to be there. This is what frees you up to focus on growth and expansion, like truly free you up, okay? Not like, okay, I step out for a day, but then I get pulled back in, okay? Anytime you're required to be part of operations, fulfillment, or acquisitions, then you've literally become the bottleneck of scalability or growth in your business. I get it. There are some things that you probably do in the organization that you love doing. You never want to let it go. Duplicate it anyway, just in case you want to go on vacation. You know what I mean? So the next test is what we call a time freedom scaling stress test. Okay, and this is how this one works. So you want to take what you did with the 100,000 per month scale test. You take the results of that. Okay, with all the gap spackles in place. Now you run the following scenarios. Take yourself 3 hours, 3 hours a week out of the business and see if the business can continue to scale. See if there's any impact, okay? I mean, take everything that you do out for 3 hours a week, Okay. And you say 3 hours. Oh, that's easy. Okay, great. If that works, then you move to in increments of 3 weeks out of the business. Okay. The reason why we use 3, because most of us have been unconsciously trained to be okay with 2 weeks and find ways to nestle 2 weeks in out of the year. It's just kind of how our modern society and culture has kind of like trained us to be able to do. So 2 weeks is, most people say, oh, I can do 2 weeks, right? So we go by 3 weeks because it kind of like disrupts that programming. So 3 weeks and see how the business does. Run the scenario, run the business without you being part of the day-to-day, okay? Now, increments of 3. Now it's 3 months. Take yourself 3 months out of the business and run the stress test and see how the business does. Does it remain stagnant? That's not what you want. Does it continue to grow? That's what you want. Okay. Does it continue to scale the way you'd like it to scale? Okay. So that's a little icing on top. If you want to take it to the next level, you go 3 quarters, right? So 3 quarters out of the year, that means 9 months. How does a business do? Okay. Usually at that point, people stop. If you want to take it to the next level, the next 3 would be 3 years, right? And, the reason why 3 years is kind of interesting because most people are guided and consulted, business strategists like, what's your 1 year milestone, 3 year milestone, 5 year milestone, 10-year milestone, right? We any of us who have worked with or read books around business strategy and developing milestones and goals, we've been given those increments. So guess what? If you can take yourself out of the equation for 3 years and still hit those scaling metrics that you want to hit, you're probably 100% out of the business at that point, okay? And I'm not saying that you sell the business, right? I've had clients who say they want to sell the business, but I've also had clients who say, I don't want to sell the business. I love my business. I just don't want to be in it all the time. And I want to have the freedom to be 100% out, but still enjoy the benefits of, being connected to the staff and still owning the business along with, of course, the revenues and everything like that. So, which basically transitions the owner to an investor of the business, but still owning the business, right? So those are the 2 stress test mechanisms. You run that over and over again until your anxiety goes away. And it's different for everybody. Some people run it once, twice, apply the spackle, run it, boom, done. Some people have to run it several times. Whatever it is, I want you to get into the habit of running these scenarios, running these simulation models every time before you scale. And the reason why I'm so wanting to share as much as I can about this so that you could just take what I'm saying right now and just run with it right after this episode and start building out your bulletproof foundations of scaling is because I've seen way too many brilliant, amazing entrepreneurs who have great visions, great ambition, and great ability, potential for impact, burn themselves out through years of unsuccessful scaling to the point where they convince themselves that this is not the business that they want. When in fact, all they needed was to bulletproof their foundations so that scale, the challenges around scaling don't get in the way of your ability to really serve at the highest level when it comes to your business, your people, your teams, your staff, and your customers, right? And your clients. So once that's all done, then you can basically execute. And I challenge you to run this and resist the temptation to prematurely execute your scaling tactics and strategies until you've fully run the scenarios over and over again. I have clients who are such huge fans of this bulletproofing method that even though they've run a scenario and run the simulation and it completely passes, they still run it a few more times, making fine-tuning tweaks to a fault, in which case that's a whole different episode where we're talking about analysis paralysis, but it's not effective, okay? And again, like I said, the beautiful thing is once you have it set up and you have it installed into your ecosystem, it literally becomes a precursor to scaling strategy that will help guarantee sustainable scaling each and every single time and eliminate the destructive nature of that yo-yo dynamic. When we're younger, in our 20s and 30s, we probably could handle it. But for those of us who are in our 40s and 50s and 60s, and we're looking to exit to a different dynamic from our strategy, we're going to looking to scale up and out, right? Which is our name of our program. Yeah, we don't have the energy or intestinal fortitude or even the patience of having to go through that hustle and grind. Remember, that hustle and grind thing is just in the beginning. It should be just in the beginning of any business, because at some point that sprint mode is not sustainable. Okay. So, if you have any questions about this, if you want more information, just look in the descriptions around this. There's going to be links and different ways to connect. I hope you enjoyed this episode. And if there's something that we talked about that you want to dive deeper on, like I said, just check in the description, and that'll hopefully help you shift there. You can visit us at limitlessleader.co. Not com, .co. You can find us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, even YouTube. And when you do reach out to us, just make sure to mention this episode that inspired you, so we have a little context on knowing what resources to give you. We have so many different free resources to provide to help you scale up and out without sacrificing revenue, growth, and the happiness of your team and staff. So until next time, keep striving onward and upwards for the limitless possibilities that lie within you.